Look, I know I may have thrown some tables into the air, but today we're going to be talking about Airtable. Airtable is basically Microsoft Excel on steroids. If Microsoft Excel and Airtable went to the gym together, then Microsoft Excel skips leg day and Airtable doesn't. The reason that you would use Airtable is especially if you're doing online businesses, but just if you're wanting to get a much better visualization of the stuff that you're actually doing, that's a really good reason to use it. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a few use cases for it, as well as demonstrating how to actually use it at the end. So let's talk about this table, and I'm going to show you something pretty magical. Basically, on the left-hand side, you can see I've compiled a bunch of GP clinics, and so this is one of the things that we had to do. It's because we had to apply for these different places in order to practice as a doctor. But I really wanted to see where they were in relation to where I live, because it's nice to actually work in a place that's next to you, right? But you know, Google Maps is kind of like, you can search each individual one, and that's just a bit of a hassle. So Airtable to the rescue. What I've actually done is I've created this gigantic list of all the GP clinics that I was looking at, and then you can actually use an app on the side of Airtable to take that list and actually populate it on a Google map, which is super duper cool. So if you zoom into Australia, then you can see that, oh, like these are all the individual clinics that I've put on this list, and it's pretty much automatically generated. It does take a little bit of finicking, a little bit of work, but it's not that hard to do actually. So for example, if I actually click on one of these clinics, like, you know, it can give me the details of it. I can expand that individual record and look at, you know, some of the criteria that I put on. So for example, we had to do some outer metro rotations, and you can sort of have a look there, and there's that. So I've also got this little table here which tells me about some of the statistics there. This is called a pivot table, and this is something that's really easy to do too from the apps. Let's go to the next thing, because I thought this was super cool, and it's really useful if you're going to do something like, for example, real estate or apartment hunting or whatever. You can try to use this. So the next thing, let's get down to business, but not to defeat the Hans, but actually to do some business research for e-commerce. I used to have this e-commerce business called Yo Muscle, and essentially Yo Muscle was trying to sell muscle massage guns. This particular table was my research table to try to figure out what each individual competitor was doing. So as you can see, I've put some intents on the side. So for example, like the stuff that they were advertising the massage guns to be doing is like increasing the range of motion for sports, minimizing pain from sports, and the list goes on. And I just wanted to clarify, what is it that my audience or customer actually wants? So I've put on a lot of different categories here. As you can see, you've got this field called a single select, and you can actually add in options there, and they all come up in nice pretty colors. But that really allows you to sort of filter out different things. So for example, if I wanted to filter out only extremely important things, then I could just go to this filter button, add filter there, and then I can put importance is extremely important, and then it really quickly just gives me the things that are inside that category. Immediately, Airtable was really good for that sort of visualization, because you can really sort of sift through a lot of data very quickly. Even if I didn't put on this category filter, you can actually have something where you can search the individual things and just highlight the cells that have a particular word inside them. So for example, adding a filter here where the intent contains the word increase, is now got me the cells that are there that just have that word increase. So you can see already Airtable is really good for that. You can do a multi-select. So for example, if something fits within several different categories, for example, you know, the idea that you want to increase the range of motion of your shoulders applies to gymmers, but also applies to athletes in general, or athletes who are male. And so I put all those three categories there. There's some categories where it only applies to female athletes, but for this one, I've put that there. One of the really cool things about Airtable is that you can actually attach pictures to it as well. And so the pictures themselves can go into an individual cell. I'm not sure if Notion had taken this from Airtable, but this is something that makes Airtable particularly unique, especially when compared to Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, because dragging and dropping is really easy. You literally just drag the picture and put it into the cell, and it's there for that. You can even add comments. Airtable recently has let you put in rich text formatting into the individual cells, which is really good. So for example, let's say that I just wanted to bold something like this. Oops, I might have to change this one. Oh, okay, sorry, this is a bit of a legacy table because I've made it all ages ago, but nowadays, you can actually put in rich text formatting, you can do bolding, italics, whatever it is, and that can be inside your Airtable cell, which is something that makes it a lot more useful than it used to be too. You can put on different collaborators, so you know, Airtable, like Google Sheets, is something that you can collaborate with other people with, and so they can add comments, they can add new cells, and that's obviously very useful. You can do different formatting. One of the interesting things you can do is a formula, which is where you actually take something that's inside the table already, like a number or something, and then you can compute that into the new cell. And so that's pretty cool. So for example, let's go to the formula thing here. And then you could actually, you can see that I can take these individual cells and then just use that. In this table is mostly text, so it's not going to work that well, obviously, but if you had something, for example, which was just full of numbers, then that could be very useful, especially when you've got something that's constantly updating. The next use case I want to talk about is that if you make a website, so for example, you make a website on card.co, that's card with 2 R's, you can actually link it up to a software called Zapier, and then Zapier can send things to Airtable. So it's a bit of a roundabout thing, but that allows you to sort of collect email addresses and that sort of thing from a website like Card. So for example, I have a thing where I sent my fellow doctors in training some information, and it was a website where it would send them a lot of like notes and that sort of thing. If they put their name onto the website, then I would grab their email, it would automatically go into Airtable, and then it would send them this PDF file as well as an email automatically. So that's still running to this day, and I think that's really cool. In terms of personal growth, because I've talked mostly about business and websites and that sort of thing, but you might want to use Airtable for your own learning and also for your own self-reflection. So one of the things I did when I was studying, for example, is I had made just like a gigantic list of questions, and then I'd also created this thing where I wanted to see how confident I was in each individual specialty. Actually, I need to update this because this is a bit old now, but for example, back in the day, and this is another app from Airtable, but as you can see, back in the day, I wasn't very confident in dermatology. I put a mean confidence out of 10, and I was obviously very mean to myself, haha, because I only had 2.8 there. I'm much better now because I've done a lot of study on dermatology, and so now I can, you know, recognize a lot more skin conditions. But you know, this is something that gives you a general overview. So as another example, like I was pretty confident in emergency because I'd done already like 2 or 3 years of working in the emergency department. So and I was very confident at evidence-based medicine because that's basically something where you just get to nerd out on with statistics and stuff. One of the most important things about Airtable, I think, is that you've got this visualization that you otherwise could do in other apps, but just takes a lot more effort, whereas Airtable makes it seamless. This chart obviously updates in real time depending on what I put down in it, and I really like it for that reason. This was my gigantic list of different cases, and I was like, okay, like, you know, a 30-month-old child is brought to you regarding flat feet. What is the most appropriate treatment? Like, I have no idea. In fact, I probably still have no idea of the answer to that question. So I put a confidence of 1 out of 10. And so I asked myself a lot of questions, put down these different confidences of how well I thought I could answer the question. And then as a result, it's generated this table where I've got my confidences there. That's how you can use it for self-reflection, because when you have the ability to accurately assess where your weaknesses are, then that's something that gives you a lot more of a chance to be able to address them. I think that a lot of the time, people's weaknesses aren't necessarily what they know that they're bad at, but it's what they don't know that they're bad at that's their real weakness. Because if you know they're bad at something, you just work on it and then you get better at it. This is something that really gives you a broader overview. So this is something that can be really useful for your life, whichever aspect of life it is, whether that's fitness, which I need to do more of, whether that's like trying to get smarter at something. This can be something that's extremely useful. I've hopefully convinced you that Airtable is a good thing to use. Now we're going to get into some of the more practical parts of it. Ali Abdal had put out this tweet saying, you know, I need to make this customer relation database. Can someone guide me as to what I should do about it? So I sent a message saying, look, I'll just build it, and I built it. The beauty of it is that it's so customizable that no matter what sort of business you have, Airtable will probably be able to fit its way around it. I want to show you from scratch what this simple database looks like. So you can create something like this for your own business. In this particular case, I've just got this user database. You can see on the side that it's got these forms. So you can create different forms within Airtable itself and actually share those forms out into the world, so that, for example, if you're collecting details of people that are attending your party or whatever, then you can, you know, set up a form. I don't know if people do that. What I've done is, these aren't real emails, these are obviously just you know, fake emails, except for my email, which is real. I'm gonna blur that out. So for context, Ali Abdal is building this database of his users, and he wants lots of different imports linked together into it. And his course is about part-time YouTube Academy, so teaching YouTubers how to be YouTubers and stuff. I put down a bunch of names, I put down some emails, and you can obviously get this from, for example, a form or whatever, or you can manually fill it in. One of the interesting things that you can do is that you can actually link records from different tables. So for example, I've got my user database there, but what I've done as a test is I've actually made it so that, you know, you can have this form here, and when someone actually, you know, this is a support request form. So someone could put their description of an issue, like for example, just I need to air my grievances. Tell me more details about the issue. Many grievances I have, just type it, whatever. And then you can add like a user, which is, you know, yourself or something. Obviously it doesn't really come up with all the details when you actually put this form out into real life, but you can get people to search themselves there, and then they can add themselves as the user that this is related to. So I'm gonna put it as myself. Don't worry about, like, you can delete parts of the form that you don't want. So for example, it's got team member assigned, but you know, you probably don't want the user that's asking for a support request to decide on that. So I'm just going to delete that. Actually, I'm just going to hide that field, because you just don't want it to be on the form. If you delete it, it actually deletes it from the table itself. And then status, well, I'm going to hide that too. Category, we can keep that. And then, you know, the category, the user can say, okay, so website, date added, you know, we can delete that because we can do that automatically too. And so you can share this form. So let's say I open this form, and amongst my many tabs there, this is what the form looks like. And so it's just a website that you can literally share with anyone, and now they can fill this form and be like, just get rid of issue, YouTube video too long, tell me more detail, I need shorter, like 2 minutes, progress, oops, I probably should go over that, whatever. And because I'm the only one complaining, I might get say someone else so that it looks okay. So submit, thank you for submitting the form, and then now what should happen is that it actually comes up as something in the table. So that's really cool, and it's very quick, and now it's automated. It's still connected to that user database that we've got for this guy here, Cloud Strife, with sephirothbad@gmail.com. And then you can look at that and assign a team member or whatever. But there's more, because that's just one little automation. The next automation you might do is you might want to say, okay, if I assign a team member, then I want to send them an email that has that support request now. That's what I've done. So I've actually created this small automation here. Next to apps, there's this automation thing. This is a really cool part of Airtable too. And so what it does is, when a record matches the conditions, in other words, when this particular table is, like you select like, you know, from a bunch of things, but in this particular case, when record matches conditions, the trigger will fire, and then you can choose which table. So for example, maybe if I update the user database, for example, and add a new user, then I can send an email to someone or whatever, but I don't want to do that. Support requests makes logical sense. When team member assigned is Dabido, and you can run a bit of a test to see if that's true, then you can make an action, like sending an email. You can even update records in other tables, for example. You can run a script, which is really crazy. You can't do that in Microsoft Excel, or not that I know. You can also integrate it with things like Slack, or Microsoft Teams, or Salesforce, or Facebook, whatever it is. So, or even Google Calendar, if you wanted to, you know, create a new event, for example. So that's something that works really well. You can, you know, customize the different email itself. So I've made it go to myself, I've put on the subject, and when this fancy thing here is basically like, if I click the plus button, I can make the subject come from this particular record on the support requesting. I can say, okay, I'm gonna insert the name of the issue, which is what I've got there, and then the message can, you know, the message that gets sent in the email, I can also, you know, populate there with different things that come from the table. So when I actually look at the email itself, it's going to look something like this. So it's going to send me an email that says issue can't access symposium, and then it'll have the date, it has the name, it has the issue there, and that's really useful. With all these automations, that's definitely one of the main reasons that you would use something like Airtable. Basically, Airtable is very fast across heaps and heaps of records, so you don't have to worry too much. You know, like sometimes Notion's tables, if they get like super duper long, they become like really slow to load and stuff like that. On Airtable, that's not really a problem. And to be honest, even with Notion, I think you have to have like thousands of different items in the cells of the table for the performance to slow down. But in Airtable, like it just doesn't. Something that I really should tell you, this is actually like a bit of a secret, haha. Although Airtable, for the most part, you probably want the Pro plan because the Pro plan's got all the apps and stuff. It usually costs about 20 USD a month, so it can be a bit expensive for people. There is a way to get it for much cheaper though, and that is using joinsecret.com. Now, I'm contacting them currently because I want to get affiliation with them, but I don't have one yet. I just really like the idea of this software, and this is something that you can save a lot of money on, because basically if you join this joinsecret.com thing as an online business, then it gives you a lot of discounts and coupons that allows you to claim heaps of money in credits. For example, for Airtable, there's a lot of money that you get that contributes to your credits. I think you still have to pay something like $100 or something for Join Secret once off, and then you get access to this deal, and then gives you like $500 of credit. So that will save you $400 essentially, or whatever it is. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head because it's been a little while. That's something that you can do to save money on Airtable. They do have free plans and a light plan as well, but the problem is that you can't really use apps for that, which is kind of the point of using Airtable, I think. We made it! You are a master of Airtable now. I'm Dr. David Liu. Feel free to subscribe if you feel like seeing me again. Otherwise, I'm going.